A peaceful school day shattered by gunfire. Innocent lives lost in a place meant for learning and safety. But why? And who could do something so horrifying? Today, we dive into the tragic story of the Nashville school shooting that rocked the entire nation in March 2024. You won't believe what investigators are uncovering. It was a typical spring morning in Nashville, Tennessee. A prestigious private school, known for its excellent education and tight-knit community, was alive with the usual hustle and bustle. Teachers were preparing lessons, students laughing and talking between classes. But then, everything changed in a matter of seconds. At 10:32 a.m., the first gunshot rang out, followed by another, then another. The school, which had always been a sanctuary of learning, quickly turned into a scene of chaos and horror. Students and teachers alike ran for their lives as a shooter roamed the halls, targeting anyone in sight. But the question remains, who could do such a thing, and why? Eyewitnesses reported seeing a figure in dark clothing and a mask enter through a side door. Security cameras caught the individual just minutes before the massacre began. But here's where it gets eerie. No one recognized this person. Was it a student? A former employee? Or worse, a complete stranger who had somehow slipped through unnoticed? With the school on lockdown, emergency calls flooded the police department. Officers were dispatched immediately, but every minute that passed was a minute of terror for the students and staff still inside. The shooter, armed with what would later be identified as an AR-15 style rifle, moved with purpose, as if they had planned this carefully. But how had they managed to get inside the school so easily? One of the biggest mysteries of this case remains unsolved. Inside the school, panic and fear gripped everyone. The sound of gunfire echoed down the hallways as students huddled in classrooms, trying to stay as quiet as possible. Teachers did everything they could to protect their students, some even using their own bodies as shields. But the shooter was relentless. Imagine, you're sitting in a classroom, hearing the shots getting closer and closer, not knowing if you'll be the next target. It's the kind of terror that no one should ever have to face. When police finally arrived, they were met with a nightmare. Broken windows, overturned desks, the smell of gunpowder in the air. And worst of all, the bodies of innocent children and teachers who had lost their lives in a place meant to protect them. But even after the shooting stopped, the nightmare was far from over. As the investigation unfolded, authorities were left with more questions than answers. The shooter's identity? Unknown. Motive? Still unclear. No manifesto, no clear warning signs. The shooter's background didn't fit the profile of someone capable of such violence. This wasn't a disgruntled student or an angry former employee. So who could have done this? Authorities are still piecing together the evidence, combing through social media accounts, phone records, and surveillance footage in the hopes of uncovering a clue. But so far, there's nothing concrete. Just a seemingly normal individual who woke up one day and decided to commit an unspeakable act of violence. Now, this is where things get really interesting. Conspiracy theories began swirling almost immediately. Was this a coordinated attack? Could there be more people involved? Some witnesses claimed to have seen a second person fleeing the scene, but so far, no evidence has backed that up. Others wondered if the shooter had been radicalized online, as we've seen in other tragic cases. It's a terrifying thought. What if this was part of something bigger? But as of now, investigators are keeping their cards close to the chest. The public is left wondering, was this a lone wolf attack, or something much more sinister lurking beneath the surface? The impact on the community? Devastating. Nashville, a city known for its music and southern charm, suddenly became a symbol of tragedy. Parents, teachers, students, all grappling with the horror of what happened that day. The school? Closed indefinitely. Counseling services? Overwhelmed. But there's another layer here, the fear. Parents across the country began questioning the safety of their own children in schools. Could this happen again? And if so, how do we prevent it? It's a question that has haunted the nation for years. After all, how do you protect against something so random and senseless? The shooter was eventually neutralized by police, but even in death, they left behind more questions than answers. The investigation continues, but the community and the country is left wondering, why? What drove someone to such senseless violence? And could this have been prevented? What's even more unsettling is the lack of a clear motive. In many mass shootings, we eventually learn of some grievance, some trigger that pushed the shooter over the edge. But in this case, nothing. It's as if this person simply woke up and chose violence for no reason at all. Or maybe there's a reason we haven't uncovered yet, a reason that could change everything. So what now? The investigation is ongoing, and while we wait for answers, one thing is clear. This isn't just another tragic story. It's a wake-up call. A reminder that even in places we consider safe, danger can strike without warning. But what if this isn't the end of the story? What if there's more we don't know yet? The investigation has barely scratched the surface, and the shooter's motives remain a mystery. Could the truth be far more shocking than anyone expects? Stick with us as we continue to follow this case closely, because something tells me the most shocking revelations are still to come. If you found this story as chilling and eye-opening as we did, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more real crime stories that uncover the dark truths lurking beneath the surface. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss our updates on this ongoing investigation. And remember, sometimes the scariest monsters aren't hiding